ForgeBox module of the week, and this week we're going to be talking about a module that we've been using forever. You should be TestBox.
Mhm.
So we haven't covered this in a while, but with TestBox 5 coming out, I thought it was a good time to remind everybody and put that there. So obviously you do a lot of work with testing, and one thing people forget, and I want to remind them, is you do not have to use ColdFusion to use TestBox. Right?
True.
You can use TestBox to test your old CFML apps. I mean, to be honest, you could use TestBox to test just JavaScript. Like you can use it to test your API. You can test it to do a lot of different things. It's just a testing library, and ColdFusion is obviously powerful enough to make HTTP calls and everything else, and TestBox does a lot of great things there. We got CLI runners, we got HTML runners. You can spit out JX unit tests when you're running tests in your pipelines. You can actually spit out an X unit test variable, so a lot of the units all run the X unit stuff is in a lot of pipelines. So in your pipeline, it can show you the number of tests you had, successes, and our code coverage stuff can spit out that as well from TestBox. So in your pipeline, you can see your test completions and everything else. You can run it from your command line in your in your VS Code with TestBox Watcher, so we can actually watch your code when your changes, run your tests. You can run it in the browser. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. And again, TestBox IDE is coming soon too. So a lot of cool stuff in there. Highly recommend it. Should be testing your code. If you're doing it manually, that's fine, but think about all the time you could save if you can automate some of it too. And I always say, at least have a sanity check, right? Can my code compile? If I hit my CFC and it doesn't, basically if I create my CFC and it compiles, that's like one part of the puzzle. Like sometimes you copy paste something, or you go to control save and you hit some other character, something weird gets in there. That syntax is bad. You push that code, at least if you have a test on it, you'll know that it can compile. You've got no syntax errors at least. And like even for someone with legacy app, that little test can save you so much trouble. So highly recommend just getting something in there. Remember, the more you do, if you add a little bit every day, baby steps, you're always going to improve. It's incremental, and you'll eventually get to the point where it's more and more useful and valuable to your company every day.
And along with that, TestBox, what's kind of cool, yes, its primary focus is testing. But from a development point of view, and I'm not talking about write your tests first development. I mean, that's a whole separate thing. What I mean is just the ability to run the function that you are working on in isolation over and over again without having to go back to the interface. Excuse me. That's a huge part. I use TestBox for that a lot. In a sense, I'm setting up a test for it, but really it's a test that just runs the function. So while I'm developing it, I can actually see what's happening, what's coming back from it. So it's a development tool as well.
Yeah, and that's the way I think of it too. Like, usually when you're programming a function, you think about, okay, what are the possible, inputs and outputs this function can handle? What's the happy path? What's the sad path? The bad path? And so those edge cases, I'm always thinking about those edge cases. So I make a test to hit those edge cases, so I don't have to do it every single time for every single thing. And it does make a big difference. And like I say, it may not be test-driven development, but usually if you are trying to hit those edge cases, you will design your code a little better. You'll make sure that you cover it, and it does help a lot. So, TDD is hard for people to swallow, and they think is waste a lot of time. I'm like, you think about how much time you waste when you're trying to test it manually, because we are testing. We're just usually clicking around in the browser with our mouse, hitting F5 a bunch. And, again, if you're trying to test that the password creates a user, the function creates a user properly after you've logged in, registered, you're probably going to refresh your page, go to the registration page, fill out the details, hit the button, and then you're like, oh, okay, that one worked. What if I put an email address that's already been in use? What if I use a username that's too short? Now you're testing all those edge cases yourself manually. If you can automate most of those, you can still do your happy path test manually, but at least you've got all those weird edge cases covered. And So anyway, TestBox is great. We do a lot of work with it. If you look at it, the syntax looks a lot like Jasmine. We learn a lot of things from other great testing libraries out there. So start using it, even for something simple. And then, and as Eric puts, you can do awesome stuff like with CB Playwright, where you're actually clicking around. So Playwright can actually open up the browser. It spins up the browser you want too, and then it allows you to actually click on a field, type something in, click on another field, type something in, hit the button, check that the title of the page is now, that you've logged in successfully. You can look for a menu item to show that your favorites are showing or whatever. And CB Playwright is awesome. Cypress is good. CB Playwright's another level. I really love all the stuff that they're doing. And then Eric's brought that in to TestBox to make it easier for you to use in TestBox with CB Playwright. And so it's really cool. So check out TestBox. Easy way to get started. We got lots of videos on it and everything else, and we'll probably be doing some more. That was our ForgeBox module of the week, brought to you by Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition, proudly sponsored by Ortus Solutions. You can see the new episodes every week on cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io or on the Ortus Solutions YouTube channel.